And in loving support for their families, let us please observe a moment of silence. Thank you very much. I'd like to call now to order the special meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees for Tuesday, November the 30th, 2021 at 6 p.m. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Board members, do you have any proposed changes to the agenda? Hearing none, administration?
Administration has no changes.
Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as proposed?
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. The second item on our agenda is our discussion presentation, our Penn Township Board candidate interviews. This special meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees has been called for the purpose of interviewing applicants for the Penn Township vacancies resulting from the recent resignation of Mrs. J. Calloway and Mr. Jamie Woods. 14 candidates submitted applications for consideration by the board. There are 8 applicants who have been selected to participate in the interview process. Applicants who were interviewed yesterday included Mrs. Ann Bolster, Mr. Vance Cole, Mr. Robert Hyde, Mrs. Ashley Leader, and Mr. Ryan McCullough. Applicants being interviewed tonight include Mrs. Michelle Peters, Mr. Andrew Tipton, and Mr. James Turnwald. Again, on behalf of the board and the administration, we do express our thanks to everybody who has applied for these positions and everybody who has accepted the invitation to be interviewed. The board will announce the appointment of its newest board members tomorrow, Wednesday, December the 1st, 2021, at a special meeting of the Board of Trustees scheduled to begin at 8 a.m. With that in mind, and on behalf of the board, good evening, Mrs. Peters. We welcome you to the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees special meeting this evening, and we thank you for preparing your resume and submitting a letter of interest. I understand that you're participating by a video feed tonight, so if you don't mind, we'll take a moment for all of the board members to introduce themselves to you, and we'll go left to right.
Hello, my name is Jim Garrett.
My name is Larry Beeler.
I'm Christopher Riley.
I'm Angie Gates. I'm Claire Roach.
I'm Jeff Johnson.
I'm Jerry Thacker, Superintendent.
So Mrs. Peters, being that you are participating by video, can you say hi to us? Just make sure that we can hear you.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you great.
Oh, that sounded like you can hear me really well. You can turn me down a bit, I guess. So I think my husband might want to know how to do that, but that's a whole nother thing.
So Mrs. Peters, the floor is yours to share some general background information about yourself with us and the reasons why you were interested in becoming a member of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees.
Well, first I want to thank you for allowing me to come virtually. So this is just the proof that COVID is not done. I will share with you that my son, who is a Penn grad, happens to be going to Purdue, came home for the holidays and is fully vaccinated and was exposed and tested positive today, which then meant that I need to get tested and follow those guidelines, and which means I can't be there in person. So I apologize for that, but we do have to follow what we know is right and to keep everybody safe, and that's what we're doing. And it just really shows that COVID is not going away anytime soon. In fact, if I may, I will share with you some of our numbers at our hospital system, just so you guys have an understanding of what my world looks like on a regular basis. So today we have 66 patients in our health system. That's between 2 campuses that tested positive for COVID, that are in the hospital for COVID. These individuals, of which there are about 20 that are fully vaccinated. So I want everyone to know that I'm going to be clear on that. There are lots of breakthrough cases, and that's why the boosters are going to be so important. Of those, we do have 10 in the ICU, and we are working very hard to keep everybody safe and healthy. I will also say that we have quite a few colleagues that are out, and I will be one of them if I test positive, which means I have to keep working like this. But I'm getting used to it a little bit. This is what our world is like. So one of the things, obviously, I'm very proud of my children. That is what is brings me to this. That's why I served on PHM Ed Foundation for so many years. I believe in the school system. We chose Penn district to live in. We could have gone anywhere. The only criteria my husband said is we needed to have city water. And my criteria is that we needed to have Penn district. So we both win. So I live in Blair Hills, so we're both winners in that area. So my daughter, Rachel, graduated. She's 23, so she is out of college already. She decided to go the route of musical theater, and she has her BFA in musical theater. So proud of all the things she did with Penn, everything she did. And we started at Elm Road. And if you guys know Elm Road, they are known for their xylophones, and she did xylophones, and she just really blossomed in that area. And she just makes me so proud. Her senior year, she was able to be one of the presidents of Viva Voce, which was a new choir that was done, and she was able to win the award for choir. The big award. So mom was proud. She actually ended up, as I shared with you, went to Ohio Northern and got her bachelor's degree in fine arts in musical theater. And I remember her sharing with me that she was so happy that we were willing to allow her to try for her dream. And that's really what I think Penn does such a great job, is helps us to, as parents, help our children be prepared to actually take on that dream. She went all 4 years, she did band, she did choir, she did everything you can think of. And as a mom, that meant I did band, I did choir, I did all those things with them. And Griffin, he decided to go the engineering route. And I don't know if he knew that in the beginning as well, from Elm Road and Grissom. He did wrestling at Grissom. It just wasn't what his heart called him to do. But he always had this knack for doing things a little differently, and being able to design things and see things a little different. I will share with you, he said to me that when he did robotics, it changed his life. And that is why I want to do these things, right? So he is going to Purdue, as I said earlier. He is double majoring, and one of his is robotics technology is one of his majors, as well as minoring in electrical engineering technology too. So proud of the fact that because of Penn and PHM, they were able to find this calling, this opportunity. Sad they didn't go into healthcare. What the heck? What did I do wrong? I should have been pushing that. But everybody has their own calling, and we need to allow them to have that. And I think that's what's so great. I think also serving on the Education Foundation for as many years as I have, and I also served as the chair for the Silver Miles Health Fair component. That really showed what we can do as a community to come together to really embrace health and understand that health is such an important part of education. It's one of those basic things that need to be met in order for our students to do well. So really proud of those 13 years I shared. And I didn't leave you guys high and dry. I gave you one of my colleagues, Carrie Wilson, and now serves on behalf of St. Joe Health System. She reports to me, and she's the director of volunteer services. And she is also taking on that role of the chair of the health fair component, and is also helping with the gala that's coming up. So we believe in those things. If you looked at my resume, you saw I did a lot of boards, but I am very proud of the PHM board. I'm proud of all of the boards that I have been so privileged to be a part of. That just leads to the service that we need to do. We say that through Trinity Health, St. Joseph Health System is part of Trinity Health. And one of the things that Community Health and Wellbeing in particular say is that we listen, we partner, we make it easy. And I think that really goes to say exactly what I feel like the triangle is for us at Penn. It's all those three. You have to have everything to be a part of it. So I'm really pleased to be able to be here to kind of talk to you guys about what I think would be great and how I think I could help. Obviously, I think I could be a help when it comes to things like COVID. I think I mentioned that in my letter. But not just COVID, because I have the privilege of working with amazing school nurses that hopefully you all know. Sally Dykes, I'll use her because everybody knows Sally Dykes. But we have other great nurses besides Sally. But learning from them what school health is about and the value, again, about health and education. If our students aren't healthy, or if they don't have someone to go to, they can't learn. And that's really an important aspect of what we're doing. It's great to see that. I remember when school nursing moved over to my area, and I never did anything in school nursing. We had School City of Mishawaka, and then PHM was close behind. And I just grew with them and learned so much and have so much appreciation for all they've done. In a typical year, besides we have PHM, we have School City of Mishawaka, we have Plymouth School Corporation, we have Argus, we have Culver, and we even have some colleges that we provide school nurses for and nursing support. In a typical year, they see over 250,000 health office visits. That is crazy amount. And so obviously we know the value of these nurses because about 90% of these students go back to their classrooms because they are taken care of in those offices. And that's really what we want, right? We want our students to be healthy and be able to continue their education and continue to learning. Now, of course, COVID has thrown a little bit of a wrench in that. Our numbers are definitely increased for the numbers of students that are coming in and the amount of work that has to be done to take care of them and to take care of the people they're around. But I know that so my point for that, I guess, is if you know a school nurse, thank them because they are really working hard, and they're working hard with in conjunction with and next to the school systems, the secretaries, the principals, to try to make sure that everybody is healthy and safe. So I'm really proud of that relationship that we have with our school system, my school system, and others. When you think about, I've worked for St. Joe for practically probably older than some of the members that are on the 38 years. Did I get anybody? Is anybody less than 38 years old on the board? If so, I've worked at St. Joe longer. Happy to have been there since I was 16. So if you guys do the quick math, which I'm sure you can, you'll know how old I am. But loved my experience at St. Joe. I have been fortunate to kind of grow in my role and really feel like I can play a part in some of the strategic decisions that are made for a health system. So that's exciting for me as well. So I think that kind of gives you all of my qualifications, but mostly I do it for the kids. That's what I'm here for, my 2 kids and future children.
Thank you, Mrs. Peters. We appreciate the introduction to yourself. We'll take some time for each one of the board members to ask you a question now, and we'll start with Mrs. Gates.
Thank you for sharing and for being with us this evening. You touched on a lot of your qualifications, especially related to St. Joe, but are there any other particular qualifications that you would bring to the PHM board that you'd like to expound on?
Well, I feel like I'm a servant leader. Obviously, if you saw my resume, you saw how many boards I have served on, but I also think that I am the biggest cheerleader for my team, for my students, for my children, and I would be the biggest cheerleader for Penn-Harris-Madison.
Thank you.
Mr. Beeler.
Mrs. Peters, what motivates you to become a school board member?
Well, all of what I just shared, I guess, motivates me. From being on the PHM Ed Foundation, we had members of the board that served and came on the Education Foundation. So we were able to get those updates, and it was always great. I think it was Mr. Fox that came the last time I was there in person. And it was so great to see him so excited about everything that is done at the level that you are at, and how we as the Education Foundation were able to support those initiatives. And the teachers that would come and present to the Education Foundation were just amazing. The things that they were willing to do and able to do with such limited resources, and yet they were just knocking it out of the park, which always impressed me. So I think that that's really what motivates me, is to be a part of those discussions at that higher level. I think that the support from Education Foundation, as well as parents and everyone in our community, is important. And I think hopefully I can bring some of that cheerleaderness to the board, and maybe a little bit of humor, I'm hoping.
Thank you, Mr. Beeler. Thank you, Mrs. Peters. Mr. Garrett.
I would say humor is good. That's awesome. And thank you for your service on our boards that you've been participating on. That's very nice of you to do that, and I know that we've benefited from it. My question would be, what do you see as the biggest issues facing Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation in the near future, and what can you do to help?
So the first thing I think about is the vaping. I'll be honest, we are the lead agency for tobacco control for St. Joseph County and Marshall County. And vaping has certainly increased, especially in our youth. I was talking to Rachel about this just the other day, and I said, do you remember if you saw a lot of students in the bathrooms vaping? And she said, no, that wasn't happening when she was there, but she saw an increase at the end of her time. But I asked the same question of Griffin, they're 2 years apart. And he said, absolutely, he saw a huge increase. And I've talked to our school nurses and other people that are sharing with us that vaping is an epidemic. And I think that our team can certainly help, whether it's with helping with policies and procedures or with creating educational opportunities for the students. I think it's great to reach out to get some assistance outside of just the schools. And I think that's what I might be able to bring to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Ms. Roach.
Mrs. Peters, what do you see as your role in supporting excellence in all areas of the school corporation, including academics, extracurricular activities, and facilities?
Well, I kind of already mentioned some of the academic pieces that, I was so proud of the fact that our children chose different routes through the system. Excuse me. I also think that, even at Elm Road, I think one of the things I was most impressed with is my daughter, Rachel, in particular, scored very high on all of her testing and things like that. But she never knew she did, because they had grouped her with other individuals that helped them all to excel. And I thought that was amazing. And I was so happy that that was an opportunity that she was able to be a part of. And I think and I love the fact that those friendships continue today. They are still with them. Nobody moves out of Blair Hills, in case you didn't know that. So we still have all the same friends, and they have been together and stayed together and do so much together. So I love that. I think we have talked as parent groups to each other about what we could do to help support. We were at everything from, we used to bring health fairs to Elm Road. If that's what was needed, we helped with that. I said I was at every event. I know I helped so many times for the winter concert. That is beautiful, by the way. And, I helped get them dressed. I helped get them ready to go. And I think that's what parents need to do. They need to be active participants in their children's education and really to be there for that. When I think of extracurricular, I do think it's important. And again, I can only reference some of the things that I've been to. Of course, I've been to football games. Our athletic trainers are part of St. Joe Health System. Your athletic trainers are our athletic trainers. I have seen firsthand all the great things that they do and all the great things that the coaches do and how they inspire the students. I love that, but I also love how well-rounded it feels like that PHM is. It's not all about just the sports. Clearly, neither one of my children, as I stated earlier, went that route, but they never felt like they missed anything. They got to participate in all these amazing things because there are amazing things there for them. I think that, what Penn-Harris-Madison can provide is this great opportunity for kids to take it to the next level, but they have to know they can do it. And I think we as parents have to let them do it. And that might be a little easier said than done, but I'm always happy to be a part and walk that journey with them. As far as facilities go, I think that the work that the Education Foundation did to build awareness and to create that opportunity for big companies to donate some dollars to help us with the infrastructure was key. TCU, all of the other donors that were able to participate. And I think that was a game changer for, at least I felt it was, from the Education Foundation. And then I also think that some of the things that we're able to do for grants through there that maybe wouldn't have been able to be done through regular facilities or any other budget is an exciting part of it too. So I do think that all of those things connected make a big difference. It is about connecting your students, your teachers, your parents all together.
Thank you, Mrs. Peters. Thank you, Ms. Roach. Mrs. Peters, what is the role of a school board member in supporting parent and community involvement within the Penn-Harris-Madison School District?
Well, I think I kind of hit on some of that, right? And that it is an important role. The parent needs to be an active participant, but we as you as a board members, I've seen you at events. That's amazing to me. I think that is what shows that we are all connected, that you're not just sitting in your boardroom making these decisions. All of you have had children or have been part of the school system, whether you're a teacher or a parent of students. That I think really says a lot. And all of us, of course, live in the district. That's a requirement to apply. But I still think people choose to live in there for a reason. And I think PHM allows us to do so many things that others don't have that opportunity, which again is why we chose to live where we live. I think that we can continue to support our students and our parents by giving them the opportunities to gather when they can safely, of course, and to participate in things that aren't traditional. You know, the spelling bowls, the football games, yes, but there's the spelling, there's the academic, there is the fine arts, there is the engineering. Robotics is amazing. I'm not going to say, I can't say enough about it. Just a side note, my son only got the opportunity to do it his senior year. He was a little too shy during his junior year. He wasn't sure that's where he wanted to be. He went in with both feet. He was there. He was the first one after class there and stayed one time until after midnight and to get the projects done before the tournament. And he loved it so much that he is a mentor at the Purdue for 492. I might be saying the wrong number. I probably am. I wish my husband could tell me what the right number was, but for their own robotics. And I remember him telling me he was a young, he was a June child. So he was 18 when he went to college, and he was actually mentoring students that were older than him. And he still loved it. He's still doing it in his senior year. And he will do it. He's got to do one more semester because he's got double major and a minor. So he's going to go one extra semester and he's going to do it again next year. It has been such a joy to him. He actually also received a job at the South Bend School's immigrant summer school, and he taught robotics there. So it has changed his life. So I can't speak enough about that. It's just, you know, I don't think everyone has that opportunity to see firsthand how amazing something like that is.
Well, Mrs. Peters, we appreciate the fact you had some introductory remarks for us and that you answered the board's questions. We'd like to open up the floor for you if you have any questions for the board members or for the administration.
Well, I first have to start with Dr. Thacker. I have always wanted to know this. How are you at every single event? I mean, I have seen him at every choir. I saw him at everything. How does he do it? Does he have a secret twin?
I had a clone developed at medical. I should have St. Joe Regional.
Good answer. No, it's always been so impressive, and I say that with laughter because I've seen him at so many things, and we have talked. And not only is he there, but he remembers my children. He remembers where they went to school. He remembers me in college. He remembers that Rachel is in a play because he sees it out there. It takes a remarkable person with an amazing memory to be able to do that, but that really shows the care. There is no one else that you see out there as much. No other superintendent, there is no one else like Dr. Thacker. And I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir here, but I really believe in that. And I think that's what is also pretty inspiring is you, sir. You have inspired during all the time that I served with you on the Education Foundation, and it has been very great to work with you and to see so many different changes. But I'm also pretty impressed with your team. How do you go about picking those that are serving with you to take care of so many people?
Well, when we're looking at, one of my gifts is really identifying talent and developing talent. we've had so many talented people and they're in different roles. We watch them grow through their careers. We think of Indiana Teacher of the Year, and we've had seven finalists out of 60,000 teachers. We've had the high school principal of the year, middle school principal of the year. We've had national award winners, a presidential award winner as a math and science excellence. But we focus on professional development, wanting everybody to grow from the beginning of their careers right through the end of the careers. And that's how we look at student learning. Let's focus on continuous improvement. And that's why we have that vision of excellence that we talk about. But if we can have every single person working towards self-actualization in a safe environment, physically safe, psychologically safe, and develop our teachers, empower them, making sure that we're always focused on accountability and preparing them for college and career success, and have the passion. So we think of having a passion, a plan, and teamwork.
Love it. See, I miss hearing that. I haven't been at the board meetings in a while, and I needed to hear that. It does inspire you. It does inspire me, and I'm sure it inspires others on there. For the other board members, how do you choose which committees that you decide to serve on? Like I said, Mr. Fox was one of the representatives at the PHM Ed Foundation. How many opportunities are there outside of the actual school board for you all to participate in?
I can answer that question. Do you know the difference between the terms volunteered and voluntold?
I do. I hear that often. I think I might voluntel a lot of people, but that's a whole other thing.
There are several committee assignments outside the board for which board members are eligible. One of which is the policy committee. I think just simply by default, because I'm a lawyer, that I was condemned to that committee. And we have the Education Foundation, which is one of the more desirable assignments, and because you've seen the many great things that happen at the Education Foundation, and that the board member who is selected to be on the foundation is one who really has some time availability during the day and would be a good fit for it. And we have a delegate to the Indiana State Board Association, currently is Mrs. Gates, which really requires a lot of involvement in terms of communicating with the ISBA and what is happening statewide in terms of developments that affect school boards and school district administration. So those are the committee assignments. Am I forgetting any?
Well, the Wellness Committee, I am on the Wellness Committee, and that we meet tomorrow virtually. We haven't had a face-to-face meeting for a long time, but I think that COVID has limited what takes place at this time.
Yeah, all of those sound like great committees, though I might be drawn to maybe two of them, but just naturally I might be drawn to those two if I am honored enough to be selected, that's for sure. I think one of the other things I just want to say is how I want to ask the question on how well are you connected with other school systems, school corporations, agencies that might be able to support the students at PHM?
I can answer that. The board president from Warsaw put together just a group of women serving on school boards, and we meet like regularly because at the time when I started doing that a couple of years ago, there weren't a ton of women necessarily serving on school boards. We were usually in the minority on the school board, and so we just get together like once a semester for dinner or like for lunch, and which is area and meet somewhere and just kind of just catch up and share what's going on. We just network with one another. It's kind of support. In COVID, it's basically been counseling sessions for one another. And but it's been a great way to learn from one another and just try to make the school system better. Why reinvent the wheel if like somebody, another school system has just walked through that. We see Dr. Thacker doing that all the time. He's so well connected to the other schools that look like ours and those that don't, that he can help along. And so it's been very valuable for me,
Mhm.
especially she invited me like the first year I got on the board, and I was so new. So they kind of took me under their wing at that time. And now I've been in the process of helping other people who are new to the board.
And the Indiana School Board Association has divided the whole state into districts.
Okay.
And there are district committees organized by the ISBA that conduct regular meetings that school board members are invited to participate in, where you really do interact with other school board members from adjacent, adjoining, or maybe even distant school districts. For example, for our district, there's always a president's roundtable every 2 or 3 months, which I have found to be extremely helpful when I get to the opportunity to participate in them. Beyond the district meetings, the Indiana School Board Association also conducts annual meetings that are highly educational in terms of just refining our skills as school board members and staying atop developments in education and learning about what's going on statewide. And at the ISBA meetings, which are conducted in Indianapolis, invariably we run across school board members from Mishawaka or Elkhart or South Bend, who we know personally, but also interact with while we're there. And then finally, at a personal level, as I alluded to, we know each one of us has friends who sits on school boards in our surrounding neighborhoods, and it is not uncommon to call up a school board member from an adjacent district and just say, hey, what are your thoughts on this?
That's awesome. That's exactly, we can't do this alone, right? Nobody can do this. We learned that certainly the most during this crazy 2 years. I also want to just put out a little plug as a thank you to the school system. I know Aaron and Dr. Thacker worked really hard on getting the vaccine to your location. In particular, you invited School City of Mishawaka, and I know South Bend teachers were able to come to your gymnasium and get those shots. And I just can't thank you enough because, like I said, it takes a village. And, St. Joseph Health System were providing them, but we could only do so many. And so that was amazing that you guys stepped up and said, listen, we'll help coordinate this. We'll figure this out. And I'm so proud to be able to say that we're also helping with those shots right now. We'll be there tomorrow. Look, I'll do a plug. We'll be there tomorrow across the street at Schmucker tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday for the 5 to 11 second doses. We'll do first doses. And of course, for adults, we'll do first, second boosters. We're there to serve just as, and your school system, your principal from Schmucker did such a great job. Others have stepped up to help volunteer and help with us that day. They worked the line. They helped us with crowd control because there was a lot of students there, which just shows how important it felt to a lot of the parents to have this opportunity. And I know it meant a lot to them. So I just want to thank you for your efforts and your willingness to listen to some of the science that's out there. So I really appreciate that. And I'm happy to have played a small part in any of these roles.
Mrs. Peters, do you have any other questions for the board or the administration?
No, I think I'm good. If you have any other questions for me, I'm happy to entertain those. Does anyone have anything else for me?
No, I don't think so. We sincerely appreciate you spending your night with us tonight. We sincerely appreciate your application.
Thank you.
We also sincerely appreciate everything that you've done for the Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation by way of your involvement as a parent and also by way of your involvement on the PHM Educational Foundation. I think I can speak for all the board members and the administration in wishing you and your family our best wishes and prayers for good health and speedy recovery for your child who's infected. And again, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. It has really been an honor to have served in the past, and I appreciate you even considering me for this opportunity. Thank you. And if I don't see you all, have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too. The Board of School Trustees will stand in recess for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. special meeting, the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees. The next candidate that we have to welcome and to interview is Mr. Andrew Tipton. Mr. Tipton, come on forward, please, sir. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mr. Tipton, we ask you to feel free to share some general background information about yourself with us and the reasons why you're interested in serving on the Penn-Harris-Madison School Board.
So I'm a critical care nurse by trade. Have been for the better part of about 20 years. Was a paramedic before I became a nurse. Before that, I was a sailor in the United States Navy. Served on submarines. I've worked my way through school. I started out associates. While I was working, I got my bachelor's. Recently finished my master's in education for nursing. Kind of got the bug for education while I was mentoring some of our younger nursing students while they were at the hospital. I also work at St. Joe. With that, I decided education was kind of more of a passion. You kind of find that along the way. One of the nice things about nursing is there's about 1 billion jobs you can do just under that title, as you guys probably understand as board members and administration and teachers. You know, if you're not happy with something, kind of find something you are. And I found something I was really good at. So I'm currently the critical care educator at St. Joe. Have been in that role for the last several months. That is primarily what brings me here, is because when I was moving around, St. Joe caught my eye as a good health system, and we were looking at where to live. We had children, and Penn was the best in Indiana, and hands down, we knew that. And so wherever we settled, it had to be in Penn. And we were fortunate enough to land in Winding Brook, across from Disney. Didn't know about the Christmas lights at that time.
Luminaries.
We do participate. Gearing up for that again. So after joining the Disney family, we saw the great things that the school system offered. Our kids were in the after school programs, the cultural nights, the parent appreciations. My wife got involved in PTO. She became the vice president for a year, and then she spent 2 years as the co-president of the PTO. And that kind of drug me into it because, you know, as a family, we dove in. We always participated in the cultural nights. My wife is Indonesian, so that provided us an opportunity to bring in some of her cultural background and share that with others. And we were just blown away with the amount of diversity and culture that is in St. Joe and South Bend. And it is just phenomenal for the Penn system to not only acknowledge that, but to embrace that and to share that and to show that we are more than, you know, we are the sum of our parts. And so with the vacancies that opened, with where I'm at in my life, I thought, you know, this would be a good time to kind of put my foot in there.
Thank you, Mr. Tipton. Appreciate your remarks. And as you know, the board members will take turns asking you questions, and we'll start with Mrs. Gates.
You shared a few of your qualifications regarding to your job, but are there any other particular qualifications that you would bring to the board?
I think so. I mean, as each step of my journey, the United States Navy taught me duty and purpose, service. Paramedic allowed me to triage, to survey, to look at the scene and immediately and, you know, say, this is what's important. This is what I have to address. A critical care nurse has taught me a lot of dealing with stress and dealing with prioritization. An educator has pretty much solidified everything that I've learned. It showed me not only what I know, but how I've learned it and why I've learned it. And I think the thing that ties all that together is teamwork. I don't do anything alone. And in every step of the way, I look back and I'm like, I was never alone. I never had to do, I mean, I stepped up. I've functioned the last 5 years before becoming an educator. I was the nursing supervisor at St. Joe. So I was there at the beginning of COVID with the rapid changes that happened. We implemented changes. Staffing was one of my primary roles in that. In that, and now we've seen, as we have seen in the district, shortages of staff. The health, it I will be honest, it devastated us. I mean, to the point where we had units that we closed at St. Joe because we just wanted to be safe. We had to say, we have to prioritize, and no patient was ever turned away. We took care of everybody, but we had to make sure that our staff and our patients and our community was served. And I feel that in this same regard, that I can bring that to Penn. Those things that I've learned, being part of those teams, triaging, prioritizing, making, looking at our resources and saying, we have goals that we've got to meet. How are we going to get there? And having been part of that from one side of it, I feel I can contribute to bring that to the board.
Thank you, Mrs. Gates. Mr. Tipton? Mr. Garrett, Mr. Wheeler?
Mr. Tipton, what motivates you to become a school board member?
My children, I mean, just, I want my children to, I grew up in a school system that was very supportive. I see Penn as being very supportive. And I want my children to see that. I want them to experience that. I mean, my daughter just I have to give a shout out to Penn. My daughter was part of the Spell Bowl team that just took second at state. And, and she just could not have been happier. And the amount of hours that the staff put into that, and then supporting the children, and the outreaches and the summer programs. You talk about the robotics. My youngest went to the Lego robotics and can't wait to get into the robotics thing, so, and you do hear a lot about the Penn robotics. It is a mainstay, I would say. So just the programs and I have been I have not been a part of actually servicing the Silver Mile, but we've always attended the Silver Mile, and we look forward to that. And I know the community looks forward to that. We hear about it at the hospital, and it's always one of those things where it's coming. So the fall festivals at the schools, the little things, I think, are the things that we can't lose sight of. The community outreach, things like that, that even the family that's working many hours, you'll see them at these events because it's like a time for them to come and spend time with your children and the teachers and be together. And I think, as with everything that we've been through in the last 2 years, social interaction is so important. And it's just important that we find a way to keep continuing to push forward and to keep those programs.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Garrett?
Yes, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for your service. I have relatives who are Navy vets. I know it's an awesome thing you've done and continue to do. But I guess my question is, what do you see as the biggest issues facing Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation, and what can you do to help them?
I think the biggest issues that I see is change. Things that we've faced together as a community, you in the school, me at the hospital, dealing with the community, keeping the doors open, keeping children safe, keeping families safe. Amazing. I want to thank you guys for everything that you did and the hard decisions that you've had to make along the way, just to prioritize safety and, in that balance, finding, the balance between, do we do this? We want to protect the children, but we want to keep the children in school. We know that virtual learning was kind of at its infancy. We had you guys have an amazing e-learning that was already in place that was able to be implemented. And then to move that to a virtual in the speed in which you did was amazing. And we did similar things at the hospital to adapt to that new technology. And I think as we move forward, we're going to see, unfortunately, I think we're going to see a higher need for a blended learning environment. And I feel that, as we move forward, technology is getting better, faster, more accessible. And I think that as we move into the future, we're going to see more of a need for that and a more cohesive blend so that we can still get the social, but we can still offer opportunities and choices for people in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. Mr. Tipton, Ms. Roach.
Mr. Tipton, what do you see as your role in supporting excellence throughout the school district, including academics, extracurriculars, and facilities?
Well, I think that supporting the faculty and the staff is job number one. I mean, one of the things as helping with the PTO was teacher appreciation, just the lunches and things like that. But now being a teacher, just the mind blown how much goes on just to deliver education. And I'm in a closed environment and on a broad scale like the school systems, the amount of effort that our teachers and staff, and assisted by families that put in to just getting our children education just overwhelms me. And I think that just continuing that and showing our appreciation and paving the way for teacher advancement. One of the things in nursing that, I ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm a scientist, and everything we do is based on evidence. And evidence shows that education for educators promotes education for those that they educate. So we seek the best, we will get the best. And I think as long as we support the teachers and the faculty, then that's going to reciprocate. And then we're just going to see better outcomes for the students and then, more fulfillment for the staff. And I think that whole thing just grows and blossoms.
Thank you, Ms. Roach and Mr. Tipton. Mr. Tipton, what is the role of a school board member in supporting parent and community involvement within the Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation?
I think it's bringing people to the door. I think it's doing what Penn is doing, involvement, asking for families to not just drop your children off at the door and pick them up at night. It's the continuing, it's the reinforcement, but offering the parents and the families the resources to provide that reinforcement for the students. So as again, as we move forward, the educational offerings, the e-learning, visual learning, the applications, my phone, I can't check all my emails every day because of all the your teacher has put forth this information, this teacher's emailing, hey, your student was they did this but they could have done a little better. I mean, just that kind of, I didn't have that when I was younger. I mean, technology is better, but my parents met with the teachers once a semester and we're doing great, here you go. Now you get phone calls and and they're receptive and they're involved. I mean, it's just amazing. So I think we just need to continue that and offer families those resources and that support, and know that it's kind of that open door policy. Hey, if you've got questions, we've got answers.
Thank you, sir. Well, Mr. Tipton, we appreciate the introduction that you gave us to yourself. You've answered the board's questions. Can the board or the administration answer any questions for you?
I would like to know, I mean, I know I've seen you guys make some remarkable decisions, but what would you say is one of your toughest decisions or toughest problems that you had to solve?
How much time do you have? I think without question, hands down, the issue of whether we were to mask our students to begin the 2021 school year was the most difficult decision that I've made. It's funny, Mr. Tipton, looking back over the last 2 years, Dr. Thacker and I have occasionally joked that we've been presented at least 10 times with a matter that in the given moment, we said to ourselves, this is the most important decision we are ever going to make. Only 2 weeks later for another issue to present itself, and we said the same thing, and again and again and again. And on all 10 occasions, we were right. Because in the moment, the decision that we had to make was the most important decision of our lives up to that point. It can be an agonizing experience making very difficult decisions, knowing that there are good arguments on both sides. But at the end of the day, the position that you are applying for is one where you just simply have to make a decision, knowing that there's a likelihood that nobody is truly going to like everything about the decision that you make, but you have to make it.
I can feel that. I mean, in my role as a nurse, we were put in those situations. I mean, um, sometimes you make decisions, and again, we don't make those decisions in a silo, as you guys, are a team, and we fully support you, and we appreciate that. And I can agree that's a tough decision. Um, but the only thing I would offer is, I know that in all things we look for the balance. We take in, we have to take in the community and the response from the community and the wishes from the community, and we have to weigh the data and we have to weigh the science. And at the end of the day, the decision that I feel has to be made has to be what is the best interest of our children. I want to do this, but I want to do it because I want children to succeed. Because when our children succeed, I succeed. Because when I retire, I got to hand off the reins to somebody, and I want them to be able to drive. So I appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Board members, anybody else like to answer that question? Or in the alternative, Mr. Tipton, do you have any other questions for the board?
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and I thank you for this.
Well, Mr. Tipton, thanks tonight belong to you. We appreciate very much you applying for this position. We appreciate you coming and interviewing tonight. We appreciate your service as a parent. And most especially, we appreciate your service to our country and our community. Thank you so much for spending your time with us, Mr. Tipton. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
The board will stand in recess for approximately 10 to 15 minutes. 7:26 p.m. Our next candidate who we welcome is Mr. James Turnwald. Welcome, Mr. Turnwald. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mr. Turnwald, take a few moments and tell us some general background information about yourself and the reasons why you're looking to become a member of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees.
Absolutely. Dr. Thacker, President Riley, and members of the Board of School Trustees, first, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to interview with you tonight. I know you have received many qualified resumes, and you spent, as I watched last night, countless hours not only interviewing, but reviewing those qualified resumes overall to conduct this process. So I want to thank you for your tireless efforts of conducting this process. So my name is James Turnwald, and I am originally from Ohio, and I moved to the region back in 2008 to begin working at the Michiana Area Council of Governments, also known as MACOG. While I'm not originally from the region, the area has quickly become my home. My wife who is also from Ohio, my wife and I bought our first home in 2010, and we intentionally chose a home in Penn Township because of the excellence in education provided by this amazing school district. We now have 4 daughters, Jillian, our oldest, age 8, Paige, age 6, Abigail, age 2, and Reagan, age 1 month. And girls, I know you're watching tonight with mom. Please listen to mom when she tells you it's bedtime. Our oldest 2 daughters are in 3rd and 1st grade at Meadows Edge Elementary. And just to put it in perspective, the girls have projected PHM graduation years of 2031, 2033, 2037, and 2040. So to put it simply, I may have a few very personal invested interests in ensuring that PHM continues to provide an excellence in education to all children for decades to come. In my day job, I'm the executive director of the Michiana Area Council of Governments, also known as MACOG. For those not familiar with MACOG, we are a regional planning organization that focuses on studying and attempting to resolve regional issues and we serve a region that encompasses 4 counties, so St. Joseph, Elkhart, Marshall, and Kosciuszko County, and 35 cities and towns. We focus on topics like transportation, infrastructure, community development, and sustainability. I oversee a staff of 20 full-time and 8 part-time professionals to assure comprehensive, cooperative, and continuing policies, plans, and processes are developed that reflect the current and future needs of our region. I have the pleasure of working with our board of directors at MACOG that is comprised of 18 elected officials, and it is them. They do not have a proxy, so it is 7 mayors, 4 county commissioners, 4 county council members, and 3 city council members, as well as 2 representatives from the Indiana Department of Transportation. In my role as executive director, I lead the development of our annual work and oversee an $8 million budget. One of our roles that we play in the region is that we administer the distribution of about $12 to $15 million in federal funding for transportation projects. And we actively then help secure state and federal funds for high priority regional and community projects throughout our 4 counties. Overall, I believe I provide a strong understanding of government finance, grant writing, fundraising, and attention to detail aptitudes. My ability to work well with others and leadership experience all make for a strong foundation for this position. With my broad range of experiences, I believe that I can make a contribution to the Board of School Trustees. I welcome answering your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Turnwald. Mrs. Gates.
Well, thank you for giving us a sheet with some of your qualifications and resume. Are there any other particular qualifications that you would bring to the PHM board you'd like to share with us tonight?
Well, I'll cover a number of those skills throughout all of your questions. One qualification or perspective, I guess, that I believe that I provide is that I'm excited by the opportunity to ensure that the district serves the needs of all students, regardless of their abilities and backgrounds. I believe that I provide a unique perspective to the Board of School Trustees because our oldest daughter has Down syndrome and receives services from exceptional education. Based on this experience, I can provide the unique perspectives and insights that can assist the board in decision-making that will help shape PHM programs and policies to ensure we serve all students. In my experience throughout the 4 years that we've been at Meadows Edge and been served by the exceptional education program, we have received tremendous support. I personally would like to thank Miss Sarah Budd, who is the exceptional education coordinator at Meadows Edge, as well as our educational assistants, Miss Martin and Miss Nemeth, who provide daily support to my daughter to ensure that she can do the best that she can in school. And through this perspective as a parent, I believe that I can definitely provide a different perspective. In addition to that, both my wife and I are working professionals, and so we can provide those kind of perspectives of two parents who work and how policies and programs may affect working parents as well. I believe those are two unique perspectives that I can offer.
Thank you, Mr. Turnwell. Mrs. Gates, Mr. Beeler.
Mr. Turnwell, what motivates you to become a school board member? I think you touched on a few things, but you can add some.
Thank you, Mr. Beeler. I will. So throughout my childhood, I was deeply involved in scouting with the Boy Scouts of America. In 2002, I achieved the rank of Eagle Scout after completing my Eagle Scout project, which was the building of a pedestrian footbridge that connected two playgrounds across the ravine. Scouting is an integral part of who I am in my childhood, and it prepared me to become a responsible, participating citizen and a leader while instilling important values. One of those values is to leave a place better than you found it. It's a profoundly simple saying, but it applies to everything you do. Whether it's picking up all the trash at your campsite, even if it wasn't yours, smiling and saying hello to a stranger, improving the business you work for, improving the home you live in, or just helping to improve your community. Leaving a place better than you found it has motivated me throughout my life to serve my community in a multitude of ways, a few of which that I'd love to share with you. The first is that since 2016, I've been involved with Michiana Down Syndrome, which is a 100% volunteer nonprofit that serves our community of Michiana, and it serves the community with the mission to help improve the lives of individuals with Down syndrome and their families. I've been a board member since 2016. I've worked in numerous ways with my fellow board members there to support that mission. Most recently, for the last 4 years, have been involved with our annual Down Syndrome Walk and Festival, which is a major affair that we put on, and it's our primary fundraiser. Over the last 2 years, we've had to pivot, as all of us have had to do over the last 2 years, to try to figure out a way to continue to support that organization through its primary fundraiser, but doing that in a health conscious way where we're able to do that online. So I was one of the primary people who helped put that on, where this year we were able to raise about $18,000 throughout the month of October to support that organization. Since 2017, I have volunteered every Monday, most Mondays. I do take a Monday off here or there with Meals on Wheels. This is a very simple way that I give back to my community. I run the Route 10, which is on the west end of Mishawaka, and I provide warm meals to seniors who aren't always able to get out or need a little extra assistance, and I do that on my lunch hour every Monday. Since 2018, I've been a board member with the Potawatomi Zoological Society, or the Potawatomi Zoo. If you haven't been to the zoo, I am required to tell you that you need to go to the zoo. You need to, though, because over the last few years, the zoo staff there, the executive director, Josh Sisk, and their team have led a absolutely amazing revitalization of a treasured asset in our family. It is an institution that is extremely important to our family. You can often find us there most weekends. Since 2018, I've been involved in the board. If you haven't been, there's a new front entry. There's a Masamba, the rhinoceros. There is also a new giraffe exhibit that is finishing up and will be online next year. There's a number of great improvements, and it's a really important part of our family, so I got involved. And throughout my history, you'll see that that's what I do. Things that are important to me, things that are important to my kids, things that are important to my community, I want to have the ability to make sure that they get better. I think a Greek proverb that applies here is a society that grows great when old men plant trees in whose shade they will never sit. So that is in short or long why I'm interested in this position.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Beeler. Mr. Turnwald, Mr. Garrett.
Yes, I'd like to let you know that we also have our own Eagle Scout, Mr. Aaron Linsky. So, and I remember when he earned his Eagle Scout certification. So that's a pretty neat thing that you've done there. But my question is, going forward, what do you see as the biggest issues facing Penn-Harris-Madison School Corporation, and how do you see yourself in helping us out with those issues?
Thank you, Mr. Garrett, for the question. And I apologize in advance, as this will be my longest set of prepared remarks.
Bring it on.
All right. So I think there are a lot of different challenges that any school board faces. I think one that many of the candidates have previously mentioned that I'm not really going to touch on is everything that it entails with COVID-19. It's a very obvious one. It's definitely a challenge. I don't mean to ignore it here, but there are a number of other challenges that our school district faces. So I have three major items that I believe are issues or challenges that our school district faces, which is funding, student enrollment, and achievement. And I'll go through each of those here in a second. And then one minor one that is just always important to me, which is transportation. I'll touch on that as well. So first off, related to funding. As we all know, in December 2020, the state of Indiana released its report from the Next Level Teacher Compensation Commission. I've had the pleasure of listening to Dr. Michael Hicks, the director of the Center of Business and Economic Research and professor of economics in the Millard College of Business at Ball State, provide some summary and insights into his perspectives of what that Next Level Teacher Compensation Commission report detailed. In short, his summary was that Indiana's spending per student is down more than 7% since 2010. And Indiana dropped from 22nd nationally in school spending per student in 2004 to 36th by 2018. School spending as a share of Indiana's gross domestic product has dropped from 2.6% to 2.2% since 2010. This means that by last year, we spent roughly $1.3 billion less per year on education than we would have if we had grown educational spending at the same rate as the overall economy at the same time period. In short, his observation is that as a state, we spend far too little on education, and that the majority of that shortfall has come in teacher compensation, as there aren't many other efficiencies in his perspectives to be gained in other areas. So I think one of the challenges that we face as a district, as a state, is how do we continue to ensure, as I know you all have voted on the recent teacher union contract, competitive wages, extremely competitive wages, to make sure that we get the best and brightest teachers and staff educating our students. And one of those challenges is we may not get that funding from the state. So how do we think creatively? How do we make sure that we are able to provide the funding and resources needed to provide for the overall staff wages? So I find that as a major challenge, and I know that you all have thought creatively over the years on that, but I continue to expect that to be a challenge. The second one is on student enrollment. Student enrollment, so here, I know you all have worked with a demographer over the years, and I think it's going to be extremely important to work with that demographer over the years to understand student enrollment. So my perspective there is that after growing from about 20,200 people to 28,200 people from 1999 to 2000, represented a 40% increase in the overall population of Granger. And rising another 8% to 30,000, we'll call it 500, in 2010. Granger's population, though, just recently declined by 128 people in 2020's decennial census. It's not a lot of people. It's 128. I believe it's 0.5%. So while it's only a small drop in population, it's notable because it is the first ever population decline in a decennial census for Granger. So we also know from census data that the average age in Granger is about 42 years of age, 41.7 for those keeping score at home. It's not surprising, as many of the neighbors that you may come across in Granger are maybe in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. There's definitely younger folks, but the population of Granger is aging. And I only point this out because if Granger continues to age and its population growth is generally flat or slightly declining, this will have an impact of the school-age children coming from Granger and our overall PHM student enrollment. However, on the reverse end of this is that with the housing market remaining as hot as it has, as well coupling that with low interest rates, and the fact that some of those seniors, some of those folks who are empty nesters, may be looking to downsize, we may see younger couples buying from empty nesters or other folks after they downsize, and this may result in a slight actual increase in Granger's population by 2030. So in 2015, when PHM worked with the demographer then, policy was created and determined to ensure that we basically maintained our enrollment numbers. And this started the policy of out-of-district student transfers and raising that overall eligibility and how many out-of-district transfers we allowed. This board had the foresight to understand what that trend looked like then and reacted. I think it'll be important over the next few years to try and understand what this means for one of our largest populations and what that means for overall student enrollment, and then the policies that should be created to ensure that we have the students that we need and the resources to provide for them. My last major issue is on achievement. Meadows Ed, or our PHM has a long history of having amazing school districts. North Point Elementary ranks first in the state of Indiana. Mary Frank ranks 11th. Prairie Vista ranks 3rd. We can go through this whole list, but I think you've all seen it before. One of the things, though, that as I look at numbers, is that I think that some of our excellence in education that occurs may be somewhat uneven. And what I mean there, and this is just an example, I am not an expert in data related to education. So I might not have this perfect. But when I look at the numbers on the Indiana dashboard for, I believe, the most current year that's available, which is posted 2018, 2019, when you look up student growth, because we're focused on student achievement, the district as a whole, when you look at the question of what percentage of students in the corporation meet or exceed the annual growth target, when you look up how our lowest performing students do, and I'm going to focus primarily on math because our numbers around reading tend to, across the district and the majority of our buildings, exceed the state average. In math, though, I believe there's a different story. In mathematics, across, we're going to focus on grades 3 through 8. And I'm primarily going to do that because I'm focusing on middle school achievement. Throughout the district, for our lowest 25% of students, grades 3 through 8 is what the state uses. Our average for the district of how many of them are approaching proficiency or maintaining proficient, it's 24.4%. And that far exceeds the state average of 17.1%. And if you look at Discovery, which is ranked 4th in middle schools in Indiana, you see that same category, students there who are in the lowest 25% are becoming proficient or maintaining proficiency at a rate of 30.4%, which again, far exceeds the state average of 17.1%. However, when we go south to Grissom, the same stat, lowest performing 25% of students, grades 3 through 8 at Grissom, those that are becoming proficient or maintaining proficiency is 3.3%, which is significantly lower than the state average and what this district does on average. And we preach excellence. Now, there could be reasons, and very valid reasons for that. When we look at the district has about 22.2% of its population that is considered economically disadvantaged, or 11.5% of its students who have disabilities. This isn't to say that guarantees that either of those populations are in the lowest performing 25%, but it does indicate that they may have higher percentages that they are potentially disadvantaged, is what I'll use. At Discovery's population has significantly less economically disadvantaged students and students with disability. At Discovery, it's 12.7 for economically disadvantaged and 9.8% for students with disabilities. Grissom, however, has 35.3% of its student population that is considered economically disadvantaged and 12.4% of students with disabilities. All of this is to say is that there is a different set of student populations. All of you have mentioned this throughout this process, is that we are a very diverse school district that has a lot of different needs. And that we as a district, as a board, are faced with the challenge of ensuring that the resources that are needed are in each school. And it may not always be even in the resources that are needed. At Grissom, the numbers seem to imply that more resources are needed around intervention in mathematics. Now, I don't have a child at Grissom to know the resources that are there, and I haven't studied it deeply enough. But it does indicate that there's more that could be done. And our school board has a strong shared belief and value in excellence in education about what is possible for students and their ability to learn, and for our school system and its ability to teach all children at high levels. We aren't a school district that preaches excellence for some. We are a district that preaches excellence for all. So to put it simply, good, better, best, never let it rest. So your good is better and your better is your best. There's more work to be done here. I was excited recently at a board meeting to hear about the interventionists and win time that have been piloted throughout this year. But I also know that the funding for those interventionists is short term, that the funding for those interventionists are only for about the next 3 years, and that most of the interventionists is one per building. There's a lot more work to be done. So that would be the 3 major areas. The last area is just a short one around transportation. As presented at the budget meeting recently, we have 138 school buses in our school district. Many of them, I don't know the full percentage, are 12 to 17 years old. And we need to replace them. And at the rate we need to replace them, it's roughly 12 per year. It's $120,000 per bus. It's about a $1.4 million expense every single year in continuum. We know, based on the interactions in various peer school districts, transportation is critical. When you get it wrong, you're going to hear about it. So we need to make sure that we're on top of replacing those vehicles. I think there are a lot of avenues, though, that could expedite the replacement of those vehicles through various grant funding resources that I'm aware of through my work in transportation. I know, though, that many of them, in order to be competitive, you are also needing to consider alternate fuel vehicles. And right now, the majority of our fleet, if not all of the fleet, is diesel. And so you see school districts like Waunee who have piloted propane. The South Bend School Corp was just recently awarded funding for the first electric bus in the entire region. Other school districts are piloting technology and replacing their fleets at a different rate than us. And I think there's some work that could be done there. So those are the 4 areas that I see as issues currently facing the district.
Thank you, Mr. Turnwell. Ms. Roach?
Mr. Turnwell, what do you see as your role in supporting excellence throughout the school corporation as it relates to academics, extracurriculars, and facilities?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Roach, for the question. I've already touched a lot on academics tonight and overall achievement and what I think could be done. So I'm actually going to spend the majority of my time here answering the question around facilities. But first off, I do think that we as a board have to recognize that the school district is an extremely large operation and that the board is responsible for seeing that the district is run by highly skilled professionals who we have here running the district. Then our most important responsibility as a board is to work with our community and our highly skilled professionals to make sure that we improve student achievement. I'm going, though, to predominantly focus my attention on facilities because I feel like I already touched on academics. PHM has a strategic plan that is in place that sets a goal for facilities. The facilities goal is to maintain top-notch facilities to optimize the quality of the learning environment and extracurricular offerings in a safe environment. So my role as a board member would be to support that goal. Now, I believe in 2015, there was what was called the Schmidt study. If I have that incorrect, I apologize. That Schmidt study in 2015 was a 5-year plan. It laid out roughly, I believe, $32 million in improvements. What I learned from quickly looking at that is that the average year built for our buildings, 1974. Average year since major renovation at the time of the study in 2015 was 25 years. Walt Disney is 49 years old. Meadows Edge and North Point Elementaries, our newest elementary buildings, were built in 1998. They're 23 years old. So to say the least, we have aging infrastructure. And that's not necessarily bad. We don't need to go out and necessarily build a bunch of new buildings. I know that in 2019, summer capital improvement projects totaled nearly $14 million, roughly 1.8 million square feet across 16 buildings and 5 support buildings. So I know that we're working on it. But there is a big set of improvements that need to be done. And what does that mean? How do we best prioritize the funding for that? How do we best prioritize the improvements? And I believe Mr. Beeler said last night that perhaps it is time to look at another comprehensive study to understand what our next 5 years really looks like. Because if we did that in 2015 and it was a 5-year window, it's perhaps time for renewal to look at that. So in my role as a board member, I would work with all of you, if that was our priority, to support looking at a new 5-year capital plan for our facilities. Absolutely.
Mr. Turnwell, we have about 10 minutes left for your interview. And my question for you is, what is the role of a school board member in supporting parent and community involvement within Penn-Harris-Madison schools?
Sure. Thank you, President Riley, for the question. I think the role of the board is to set policy and oversee the operation of the institution, ensuring our highly skilled professionals are doing everything that they can to ensure that learning is continuously improving and resources are used to support the mission of learning. I think it's within the board's role as a policy developer that we should ensure that we are engaging our families. Every student has people behind them that love them, whether it's parent, grandparent, guardian. They care about their education. That's why we're all here. That's why everybody behind me is here. That's why the millions that are watching at home are there. So we need to make sure that we're able to engage our families, to get them involved. The board's will and expectations for family engagement and education, I think, need to be clearly defined and delineated in policy so that regulation, procedure, and practice can follow suit. I believe, and I'm unclear on this, I tried to do my research. I believe we do have a parent involvement policy, but that parent involvement policy only applies to our Title I schools. The one that I could find from 2014-2015 stated that our mission is to provide an educational environment for each student to reach his or her highest academic achievement. We'll prepare each student to be responsible, healthy, and contributing citizen who has acquired the skills to be a lifelong learner, ready to adapt to a changing world. We'll ensure that each of our school's mission statements provide each student's continued academic growth. While I'm unsure of and it goes on, there's 4 more pages of the parent involvement policy for our Title I schools. And I know that's required with Title I funding from that federal funding. But what I'm unclear on is whether there's a parent involvement policy for our entire district. And if there isn't, perhaps it is time to develop a parent involvement policy so that we clearly delineate what our expectations are. How do we measure to make sure that the triangle of success of connecting our students, teachers, and parents, how do we know that we did it right? How do we know that we have engaged our parents? So as a board member, outside of that policy, I would make myself available to parents to listen, to learn, to understand their life experiences and their shared perspectives and why they're coming at issues in certain ways. I might not always agree. I might have a different set of solutions, but I'll be there to listen, to understand, and to try and provide for an environment where we focus on student achievement and continuing to improve.
Thank you, Mr. Turnwald. We have just a few minutes left. We appreciate the remarks that you gave us to introduce yourself to us and for answering our questions. Are there any questions of yours that we can answer?
Sure. So one of the questions that I did have, I know many of our folks have asked previous questions, so I'm not going to ask the same question, but is around parent involvement. How do we as a district measure success in parent engagement and parent involvement? Are there metrics? Are there policies or procedures that tell us we have achieved that mission or are approaching proficiency in that? How do we know that we've maintained that triangle of success?
Well, I'll be happy to share anecdotally, not statistically, some of my experiences with you. We have a remarkably engaged community. I think even Dr. Thacker would tell you, after communicating with other superintendents around the region and asking them how much feedback do you get, he's often surprised about how little feedback those other superintendents get versus what our administration receives. I can tell you as a school board member, we receive regular feedback from our community. We have a highly engaged community, which at the end of the day suggests one thing, which is our community loves the PHM School Corporation, so much so that parents spend a lot of time being involved in it and communicating with their school board members and with the administration. I don't know that there's a statistical measurement. I can only give it to you anecdotally, but being part of PHM, the school board has put me in a position of seeing controversial issues really bring out the best in people and show how much they love our students, love our teachers, love our schools, and ultimately want the best for everybody involved.
I can attest to, we often offer parent surveys, either following like parent-teacher conferences, which you probably have been able to participate in afterwards, which then gives each building principal, who then is communicating, I'm sure, with Dr. Short, how those surveys go. And that gives an opportunity for parents to, to be involved and to communicate that involvement to teachers and principals. And then we've also had some at the high school level, different surveys that have gone out on specific issues and topics that there have been particular parent requests for involvement that have occurred while I've been on the board or as a parent. So parent surveys, especially now with the ability to do things electronically and touch more people, have been one way that we have been able to access a large group and assess those feedbacks, as well as just hearing back from the numbers of parents participating in those different parent-teacher or school events is one that I can think of that's immeasurable.
So I'm going to give you an honest answer as the new person on the board. I don't know. That's an excellent question. I can think off the cuff of a couple metrics that I think would approach your idea, not just in terms of feedback, but how one might measure the different avenues with which parents engage with our schools. I know most of our elementary schools track the number of volunteer hours that they accumulate. Obviously, the last 2 years have been exceedingly difficult on that front. That might be a metric that can add some dimension to answering that question. Whether or not there is a comprehensive, a coherent, I think it's important what you don't measure, right? Measuring something is a way to prioritize, throw a spotlight, etc. Whether or not there's a comprehensive, thoughtful, multi-layered metric, I don't know. So thanks for asking.
And Mr.
Yeah, I'd like to say something on that. I've been in Penn for 50 years as a teacher, coach, and now a member of the board. And it's something that's, I don't know if you can even explain it. It's like almost metaphysical. It's like a common bond of fellowship that parents and students and teachers have. I mean, when you see a Penn person out somewhere, it's like, you extend the right hand of fellowship, because that's the way it is. You feel good about it. There's another person who's experienced the same things that I have, experienced that success, that desire to be the best at what you do in the classroom, as a teacher, as an athlete, as a member of the chess club or whatever. What we do here is we strive for excellence in everything we do. It's not like, well, just show up and see how we can be. Everybody does the best they can to be the best version of themselves in everything that we try to do in a school corporation. And it's a feeling you get just from being part of it. And I don't know if you can measure that, but I can sure tell you, I feel it. And I'm sure that everybody else feels it too. So I hope you feel it.
I do.
Appreciate that, Mr. Garrett. Mr. Turnwald, we are unfortunately out of time for your interview. We thank you very much for coming and submitting your application to us and for coming for tonight's interview. We also very much appreciate all the work that you've done for MACOG and for our surrounding communities as well as our community itself. It's been wonderful to see you, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Before we adjourn, I do want to make a public statement on behalf of the board and the administration. When this process began, somebody asked me what I was hoping for in the process. And in the moment, I said, I guess I'm hoping for a difficult decision. And what I meant by that was I was hoping that we would get so many great applicants that the first level evaluation would be difficult, just in terms of who to actually interview, and that the next level of evaluation would be even more difficult in terms of who to offer these two board positions to. In every respect, the expectation that I had when this process began has been exceeded. And I mean that sincerely. All of the individuals who submitted their applications to the board originally, we thank you. We really appreciate your commitment to PHM and to our community. We thank you for having submitted those applications. To all the individuals who accepted the invitation to come and be interviewed publicly in front of the board, we thank you. We are really appreciative of your candidacies for these two open positions. I guess walking away from this, having seen and participated in these interviews, I'm once again encouraged about the greatness of this school district. And I look forward to what now will be an extremely difficult decision. There being no further business before the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I should move.
Second.
All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed vote nay. Motion carries by a vote of 5-0. The next meeting of the Penn-Harris-Madison Board of School Trustees will convene tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Wednesday, December the 1st, here at the Educational Services Center. We stand adjourned.